Hello, my name is Lewis, and I'm about to review this Hatfield shotgun. It's SLG, SLJ, something like that. Um, and I bought this at Walmart about 3 months ago, and I'm about to go over the pros of this gun and the cons of this gun. And most reviewers focus on the negative, but they've never really owned a gun in this category of guns. And by that I mean cheap, really cheap guns. And so I'm about to go over some good things about it and some bad things about it. Now, one thing I will say about this gun, and before people say treat this like it's loaded, I'm going to point out this is a break action. So you have to manually load this. Now, there is no ejector for this, so you're going to have to manually load this and disload it. And for that, I really don't agree with putting a safety on this gun, because if you want to check to see if it's loaded, you just and you're like, oh, not loaded. And that's one of the big things is I never got why they put a safety on it. The other thing is this gun has a trigger pull that is not really associated with break action guns. Now, I will point out that it has the same trigger pull as a Ruger Mini 14, which is about 6 pounds, which even that's a semi-automatic, by the way, and I do realize it's a rifle, but it has the same trigger pull as that, and it has the same trigger pull as cheaper um, AR-15s. So I don't mean that to be any bad, but people that complain about this trigger pull generally don't own other weapons that have a similar trigger pull that are superior weapons, and all even a cheaper AR is better than this, and the Mini 14 is way better than this. But I will point out they have the same trigger pull. Now, I will say this has a really heavy hammer also, because it takes about around 8 pounds of force to cock the hammer. It takes about 6 pounds of force to pull the trigger. So it has a heavy action on it, and that is par for the course when you get a gun this cheap, because you know that's just how it is. And this gun takes magnum loads, 3-inch shells, and it doesn't weigh enough. Even if you put a regular shotgun shell in there, it is a 20 gauge gun, but it doesn't weigh enough to dissipate the recoil on it. You will feel it in your shoulder. I do not recommend this gun for a small child or anyone below the ages of 14, because it will it like the kick on this thing makes you want to cry. And I'm a grown man, and I shoot this thing, and I would rather shoot a pump action 12 gauge over this 20 gauge single shot, because it just doesn't have enough pounds to it to dissipate the recoil right. And when you shoot this, it like this is your. I'm just trying to show you. Okay, say you're going to shoot this, you're holding it right. After you shoot it, it literally will dig into your chest, or not your chest, your shoulder. Sorry, there, and it will force your shot to go down after it's already left the barrel. So during the recoil phase, it will literally force you to go down like this, because the recoil is just not. It's just this gun's too light, and unfortunately, they built this to be parallel to the trigger. As you can see here, it is literally the stock when you're aiming is literally about where the sight is. So when you're shooting this, it doesn't properly dissipate the recoil, as I was saying, and it just goes straight into your shoulder. Now, those are some big cons. Recoil. Another con is this gun tends to rust easily unless it's not well maintained at all times. And I know people think that if your gun's well maintained, it shouldn't rust. I've oiled this thing before, gone outside during the rain, shot it, came back inside, and there was already rust developing on the barrel. Not inside it, but on it, and it just blew my mind. This gun rusts really quickly. Now, if you're in a dry environment, it's great. Now, another thing I will say before I go into some of the pros of this gun is that it has a weird break action on it. Most break actions, as you know, it's near here, or you break it just by pulling down on it. This actually has a locking mechanism that is very, very cool, but at the same time weird. You have to get used to it. Is that it's on the trigger guard. So honestly, after doing this 300 times and then using an old Stevenson shotgun, I can say I prefer this. Now, what you do is we're going to go. You can't confuse this with shooting. Okay, so if you're going to shoot it, use trigger. But if you're going to break it, what you do is you pull this back. Now, this has a very easy pull to it. Like we're less than a pound. We're talking about several ounces of force can get this thing to break, and that's just amazing. And when it does break, it has a bolt like a normal break action through here. Now, you don't want this bolt to ever get loose because the gun can shake apart and it can kill you. Let's just be honest. If the gun shakes apart, it can kill you. And I never got the whole Hollywood flip to load because that's dangerous. You don't want that in your gun. Now, I know some people say they really do, but you want to keep this bolt tight because if you don't keep it tight, your gun can literally shake itself apart while you're shooting it and you can kill yourself. So every idiot that's like, this is cool, man, and just, does that to load it, they're idiots because if you can do that with your shotgun, it's no longer safe to really shoot unless you can tighten that bolt up. And most guns, as I said, the bolt's right here, and it's very easy. It's super easy. Now, as I said, most guns either break action breaks up back here, or it breaks up here and you pull up and it breaks. Now, I will say that I prefer the trigger system way better. Now, pros with this gun is that despite being a shotgun, this thing is super accurate with slugs. Now, I've shot slugs out of this at 200 yards at a range and hit something. I hit the target. Now, I didn't hit the target center. I didn't even hit it where I wanted to hit it at. But the fact that I can hit a target at 200 yards with this gun is amazing. Now, I will consider the kill zone with most break action shotguns is around 100 yards. At 300 feet, that should be your break off point. If you need to hunt something over 300 feet, you either need a slug gun, which would be amazing, or a rifle, because this break actions in general just doesn't have that much distance in them, and you don't. Now, for a break action, this thing is it's cheap. I got this at Walmart for about $106. Now, it is a Walmart exclusive gun, and unfortunately, Walmart will force you to register this gun. In any state you're in, they will force you to because it's Walmart's policy. And I will say that this gun might be micro-stamped. Not sure. I had a buddy of mine tell me that it's most likely micro-stamped because you can import this thing to California, and California is starting, not as of now, but you can buy it in California right now. You can buy this gun in California, and California will begin to require micro-stamping pretty soon. So that means that they're probably going to micro-stamp everything in California because it doesn't make sense to have some of your guns micro-stamped and some of them not. So if you ever commit a crime with this gun, just let you know it is micro-stamped and they will find you if you were stupid enough to register your gun and then commit the crime. So I will say that. And one of the pros I also have with this gun is that I like the fact that this thing is backpackable. If I'm going on a hunting trip, I can literally take it, put it out like this, put it in my backpack, pack. As long as you have a concealable weapons license in Kentucky, it's perfectly fine. And I can go hunting. Now, and then I could fit 4 of these things in my backpack. And I don't own 4, but I know a guy that has the same type of backpack I do, and he can put 4 of these in there. And he basically, if you have different versions of this gun, the 410 version, the 12 gauge, and I think there might be a 10 gauge version coming out soon, you can hunt anything you want with it. Well, so that is a good thing about this gun. It breaks nearly all the way down. So now I will say this though, before I let you go. I'm sorry about annoying you all about this gun. You are getting what you're paying for. I don't expect my gun to last forever. In fact, it is starting to show signs of wear and tear, and it's only been 4 months. This is a gun that I will say that you get a 2-year warranty with the manufacturer on it, and I don't really see it lasting 5 or 6 years after that, unless you shoot this thing concertedly. But I average at the range. I average around 2 boxes. I'm not your average shooter with this, but that's in mind. I will say that if you're going to use this as your daily shooter, like if you're like a competition shooter, if you want to shoot skeet or something, I will say this is not really the gun for you, because after a few years you're going to either have to do major maintenance on this gun, redoing the brake bolt, reconfiguring the trigger pull, or you're going to have to buy a new one. This is the epitome of a disposable gun, in my opinion. It is cheap, gets the job done, might last 5 years, and you can replace it for another, whatever, at that point I'd say $125. And it lasts another 5 years. And the idea being is that you might only need to own 20 of these in your lifetime, but they are poorly constructed and they won't last you that long. And if you're conservative about it, I'm talking about if you're an active shooter, it might be 5 years. Conservative, this might last you 30-something years, but if you're like me and you go to the range every other week and you put about 200 freaking rounds in this thing a month, yeah, this gun is not going to last very long for you. But that's my honest opinion on it. Most people call this gun a piece of shit, but that's because they're comparing it to something like a pump action or a Stevenson's break action model, which costs 3 times as much usually. Most break actions are actually about the same. Every break action that's under $200, honestly, will have the same complaints. They're too light. They hurt when you shoot them, no matter what the gauge is, and they seem to be disposable. But I think out of that price point, this Hatfield is honestly the best thing you can buy.